Well, I am so excited for this conversation, and we have our formal intro, but I think, Harriet, we were just talking before we started recording, and we met in November of 2019 and met at an event in New York City. I instantly felt connected to you and was just so drawn in. I think it's your accent, honestly, but just so drawn in by everything that you do and say. And I think I was most interested because you call yourself a priestess. And I was like, what does that even mean? So I want to dive into that first. Harriet, welcome to the show.
Oh, babe, thank you. And can I just say also that instant connection, and cannot believe it's been however many years we just established, it's been a long time. But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for having me
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Priestess. Oh God. This is the question they ask me in the playground at school because they just don't get it. Right. And I think people in the self-development world, spiritual world, are definitely like more intrigued. The muggles of the world just kind of go, oh, are you gonna put a hex on me? Like, do I need to worry? Do I need to stay on your good side? I'm like, no, it's not like that. A priestess essentially is a humble servant to humanity.
Okay.
Like in a nutshell. So for me, the way it shows up, I call myself an architectural healer. I build stuff to help people heal themselves.
Yeah.
So as a life coach, as a business coach, as a numerologist, as an astrologist, as a, typical like classic hands-on healer, I create spaces, I create programs, I create modalities so that people can heal themselves. But ultimately the job of the priestess is to be a bridge between the divine and the human,
Yeah.
right? So if we look at it in like a numerological context, like if you ever look at a deck of tarot cards, right? Everyone's seen tarot cards. So this you will get. 1 is the goddess, 2 is the priestess, 3 is the empress. So 1 being the divine and 3 being the conscious evolved human, right? 2 is the priestess. She sits in between. So she is literally the bridge for where you are and where you want to be. She's the bridge between who you are and the highest expression of yourself. She is the one who will literally bend over and be the back for you to walk over, to be the bridge for you to get to where you want to go. She'll wash the feet of her enemies. She will be in humble service to however humanity needs her to be, because I believe we're all here on this planet to improve the state of humanity. And that's every single person is here for that. So the priestess's job is to serve every single person to achieve that goal, regardless of whether they're a good person or a bad person or whatever, misgivings they've got or beliefs. Like, I see all human beings as so beautiful. I'm really trying not to use the F word. Use it all the time. I see human beings as so beautiful and wonderful and with so much potential that as priestess, honestly, is just an honor to serve people in any which way I can.
That's we can end the episode there because you just bridged the gap, ironically, between some of our audience members. A lot of them, most of them are coaches and entrepreneurs, service providers. They have a difficult time making the intangible tangible. So a lot of people that we work with, I'm sure you do too, it's sort of, I help people live their best life. And I'm like, oh, that's not the most tangible thing. And so you really did just sort of bridge that gap right then and there. So we can just end the episode here, But I'd love to hear how you got into this, because one of my favorite newsletters, I'll call it, or emails that I love to read is yours. And I don't read most people's emails, but I read yours because you tend to make predictions and use astrology and numerology. And what I found over the 4+ years that I've known you is that you are somehow always right. So when you make a prediction about something, about 6 months later, it comes to fruition. And so me, the little muggle over here, as you said, find it so fascinating. But I also know that you started entrepreneurship at the age of 19. You had built your first business at 19. You've built many different businesses. You have brick and mortar businesses, which I don't know that people even know about you. How did you end up here, the priestess, bridging the gap between where you are and where you want to be?
I got goosebumps as you said all of that.
Because you're a badass. You've done a lot of really cool things.
Thank you. How did I get here? A huge part of my ego died when it had to make space for something bigger to come through. You're right. I started my first companies when I was 19 and I became very successful very quickly. I had a lot of companies. I had a lot of staff. I had a lot of money. I was very young. I had very little wisdom. I didn't have enough experience of life, I suppose, at that point for me to be able to fulfill my soul mission. So the universe did what it does and facilitated a series of events which led to an attempted suicide, a near bankruptcy, almost losing one of my companies. And the short version of the story is I had a spiritual awakening, but it was an identity death. It was an ego death. And I think, I mean, so many people can relate to the rock bottom story, right? When you hit rock bottom and there is nothing left, like your ego dies, or a part of your ego dies, because there's just nothing left to hang on to. And so in that gap, I found the bridge that I then became. And that bridge for me was spirituality. It was Kundalini yoga. It was seeing at the time like healers, oracles, psychics. And I became so fascinated with this world that I started to study it. And when I studied it, it became an embodiment. And then the embodiment became an I am, and an identity, and a point of service. And I actually believe that everyone's got psychic gift. I joke about muggles. I believe everyone has a psychic gift. And actually, I can back it up scientifically, because we all have 10 energy bodies, something that I teach. The 6th energy body is basically the third eye. And it's just a muscle. We all have one. You can absolutely switch it on. But through all of the spiritual work that I was doing on myself as a sort of like crisis management tool, right? I think when you hit rock bottom, you hit that desperation. So this was my survival mechanism. But through all the spiritual work that I was doing, yes, I discovered that I had this gift and that I could learn this gift. But I also found something bigger than me, which was what was missing before. Because when I was building all my companies in my early 20s, and it was all about money, and it was all about how many clients can I get, and how successful can I be, and how much like my mum and dad can I be, right? Because they are very successful entrepreneurs. They're multimillionaires in their own right. It's brilliant. I had that ambition, but it was always about something else. And when that part of my ego died, and I found spirituality, and that was my crisis management, and that became my bridge, I found a bigger purpose. I found a bigger meaning. And that realization of I can help myself, but I could also help other people, because I know I'm not the only one to go through a massive crisis like this. I could help other people became so much more fulfilling. Like that fuel was satisfying, it was satiating. It was just so much more purposeful than I want to make money and I want to build businesses and I want to be like mom and dad. It was like, I can save the world.
Yeah.
And I love that so many like coaches and healers have this, like, I want to save the world. And it can be a syndrome, and it has been a syndrome. I've definitely fallen into like the hero trap, the martyrdom trap, the wounded healer type thing. But even now it drives me for that love of humanity, for our potential that I see.
Yeah.
That was my big moment, that ego death.
Yeah. And we've all had so many of them. I call it's a shamanic death as well. And when I changed over my Instagram page and created a brand new name for myself and started brand new, like that was sort of for me one last layer of this ego death that I had been going through. And it was sort of to finally put down the idea that I used to have to win at everything. Like I would win at any cost, whether it was burning myself out, breast cancer scare, like I would win at any cost. And I was going through this transformation of finally going from winning to just worthy. And I know I'm inherently worthy regardless. And it's not the numbers and the accolades and the magazines and the money. And so for me, it was like part of that ego death, because we've gone through so many now, where it was that last layer that I sort of shed, which was huge. When you see spiritual workers, when you see healers, when you see life coaches in the realm of coaching, so they're service providers and they're building businesses, what are some of the common mistakes that you see them making? Not that there is right or wrong, but what are some of the common mistakes that they are making when they're putting out sort of the, I am the bridge, or I'm building the bridge, or any of that?
They're trying to be someone that they're not.
What do you mean?
I think in this culture, and I think this is a recent development of humanity, so I'm talking a decade, maybe not even that, we are all so desperate to not only experience wholeness, and this is part of how I see humanity, period. I think we all come in feeling that oneness with God, with divine, with unity, whatever you want to call it, And part of our human experience is that we are to experience separateness as a human experience. So this is like part of my spiritual teaching. And so I see people in that space, and I see them so desperate to find wholeness within themselves. And I think that's true of all human beings. Like, we all want to feel whole and healed and blissful and peaceful. But because of this culture that we've created this last decade, not only do they want to feel whole, at the same time, they want to prove to the rest of the world that they are whole so that they can help other people become whole. And so in doing that, they're trying to be someone that they're not. They're trying to prove that they're someone that they're not so that they can help someone else be who they are also technically not. And so right? So there's this real disconnect, this real this disjointedness of, I see, I mean, I've had clients ask me this, and one of the most beautiful questions that I've been asked, and I really love the woman who was brave enough to ask this. She said to me, Harriette, how do you learn from your teachers without immediately wanting to teach it to your clients? Yes. Because I'm learning from you, Harriette, and I love everything that you're delivering to me, but my brain is going to, and now I want to teach this to my people. And I don't actually like that about myself. Can you help me with that? And I was like, oh my God, you beautiful soul. Thank you for articulating it, because 99% of people in that space learn so that they can teach, and they skip that embodiment step because they so desperately want to not only be successful, but be acknowledged as successful and be successful. And the only reason we're even in that process is because we find it so difficult to feel successful if we don't have the external validation and confirmation from somebody else that we are successful. So it's like we need our clients to tell us that we're successful so that we can be successful, instead of focusing on being successful first. So that the recognition comes after, and the recognition is irrelevant to our validation of our beingness and our essence.
Oh, and so good.
And so because of this cycle, we all say we're running for wholeness, but as we say and as we believe we're running for wholeness, we're actually running further and further and further towards separateness. We're running away from wholeness because we haven't stopped to integrate for ourselves first. We haven't recognized the divinity in ourselves first. We're seeing it in a teacher, or we're seeing it in the potential power that a client has to reflect it back to us. That's not true wholeness, oneness, divinity within the self. That's a major problem I see with this industry at the moment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's the concept of be, do, have, right? And so when you're talking about this embodiment, or you said integration, which I love that word. I'm like super masculine strategy. So yes, let's integrate, let's take action. Break that down for a second, because I feel that gets thrown around a lot. It's like, you have to embody, you should embody it first before you go and teach it. And I agree that we've become this sort of echo chamber of regurgitation. And so we learn something, we teach it, we learn something, teach it without embodying it. So how would you describe embodying? What's integration? How do you do that?
For me, this is so easy. If I cannot explain it to my 4-year-old, I'm not even going to try explain it to you. I have to be able to break it down to a level where Ostara looks at me and goes, okay, mommy, yeah, I get it. And I feel confident that I have really translated this in a way that my 4-year-old can understand it. If I can't do that, it's not fully embodied. I haven't understood it at every level, from the simple to the complex and every nuance in between.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a difference between learning and understanding. There's a huge difference between even like hearing and comprehending. And if we remember back to school days when we would have to, read the essay and then write about what it was, it's that comprehension. Did you actually get it? Did you receive the message? Do you understand how to apply this in real life? And so I love that. And we always say, dumb it down, right? Like, talk to a 2nd grader. So you say, talk to a 4-year-old. I love that. Yeah. Separateness. Let's talk about it. So it is no surprise to anyone listening that the last 3 years have definitely brought up or sort of poured gasoline on a separateness fire. And so separation has just been happening between, whether it's people's political views or how people reacted to the pandemic, or how people chose to act, whatever that would be. There's been a lot of separateness. And I know in the coaching industry, that also is very amplified, especially for you and I. We've been in it for over a decade. It's a long time. We've seen a lot of changes. You predicted this separateness before it started to happen. How did you know?
How did I know? Well, first and foremost, separateness is a part of the beautiful experience of being human. So I think there's that piece that we can talk about. There's two other ways that I can look at this. Astrologically, 3 years ago, Saturn moved into Aquarius, big separateness vibes. But numerologically, also, we've been through some major shifts. We've been through, so in that time frame, a year of 4, a year of 5, a year of 6, numerologically speaking, the year of 5 is a portal year. It's a year of transformation. It's a year of sacrifice. So we have to sacrifice one state of being for another state of being. We cannot truly go through the alchemical process without experiencing separateness. And so where alchemy is required, where change is required, one of the only ways in which we can experience that as a collective is to go through separateness. So if I bring that back around to my first point, just to kind of explain this in a spiritual, I don't know, priestess kind of concept, is that the entire universe is built in the context of duality. We as human beings, we experience polarity in everything. We only know success because we know failure. We only know joy because we know sadness, right? And in the energetic evolution of human beings, something really, really beautiful happens. So I don't know, you guys who are listening believe in incarnation, or if you do, Jess, but just run with the idea that before we're born, we are part of the fabric of the universe. Like we're part of what I call the energetic intelligence. So all our souls are one together in like a fabric. And then a piece of that soul separates itself to come into a human body so it can have a human experience. So our very incarnation is as a result of separateness. We would not even be having a human experience if it wasn't for the fact that separateness is just as important as wholeness and oneness for the universe to even be a construct, right? So I know everyone runs away from separateness and we see separateness as a bad thing and we fight separateness, but like life literally would not exist if it wasn't for separateness. Our soul had to separate from source in order for us to even experience life, right? And so then that soul incarnates in a woman's womb, and we have a oneness and a wholeness and a connection with mom, right? When we're in mom's womb. And when we're born, we are still connected by the umbilical cord, but then we experience a cutting, a separation of that umbilical cord. So that's our second experience of separation. The first one being when the soul leaves source. The second one being when we literally leave mama and we get cut physically at that umbilical cord. But then energetically, mom and baby are tied for 7 years. So those of you listening, if you've got kids under the age of 7, they are still energetically tied to you. They identify energetically by you, right? It's so important as parents that we are energetically as clean as possible for our kids, because we are literally building their identity through our own experiences the first 7 years of their life. At the age of 7, and every single person will remember this, right? Around the age of 7 or 8, energetically, there is a separation from mom. So that's the third point of separation, where it's like, okay, we've been through 3 stages of separation here. And you know this as a child, because around the age of 7, 8, sometimes it's a bit older, 8, 9, 10, you start to step into your own identity. Yeah. It's like, you're no longer just like, oh, mom says I'm going to wear this, and mom says I'm going to say this, and mom says I'm going to do this. Like, I'm my own little person, and I am going out into the world, and I am making my own friends, and I'm dressing myself, and I'm doing my own thing, and like I'm saying no to my teachers, and I'm standing my ground, or like, you know, like we're developing our own little identities. And this is wonderful from like 7 to 14, because that, energetically speaking, like from the things that I teach, that's our second evolutionary phase of energetic identity, right? It's where we experience separateness. Beyond the age of 14, it gets a little bit more dicey. And again, everyone will know this feeling. At some point from your teenage years and right through your adulthood, and this now goes until the end of your life, periodically, everyone gets a random sense, and they don't know where it comes from or why it comes, but this is why. They get this sense of, I don't know if I belong here. I don't know if this is home. I don't know what it is that I feel. I don't feel connected. I don't feel like I belong. I'm not sure who I am or what I want. And then we find moments of belonging, whether it's with a husband or with a dog or with a group of girlfriends. And then the world changes again because life happens, right? And we find that feeling again. And it's like, oh God, I feel like there's something much bigger than me. Like I'm missing a purpose, or I just don't fit, or I'm on the outside of things, or I just can't make sense. And that thing that we feel that we can't articulate is our experience of our soul being separate to source. And it's our recognition and our processing of the fact that we have been through already in our lives 3 stages of separation by time we're age 7. But of course, we don't sit our children down and explain this. So it's effectively unprocessed trauma that we then carry through into our adult lives. So then when we're faced with actual separation in like human form, so what happened in the coaching industry last year and all the arguments over the pandemic and who sides with the jabbed and who sides with the non-jabbed and all of that. When we experience separation, we experience it as trauma. Because we've got all of this unprocessed trauma from the actual separation that was necessary to our very existence, to both our survival and our thrival, right? We can't survive nor can we thrive without this separation. So separation is a beautiful thing, but no one told us this. And so part of our human evolution, and I knew this was coming numerologically, astrologically, I knew this was coming. Part of our evolution was we were going to have to come face to face with separation in a massive way, in a really uprooting, traumatic way, primarily so that we could look at it, experience it, come through the other side of it, and then in hindsight go, oh, and I survived. And I'm okay. And it wasn't that bad. But part of our human evolution, it's so necessary that we learn how to handle conflict, that we learn how to be in conscious communication, that we learn to lead ourselves through difficult things, and that we learn to experience wholeness and separation as the beautiful polarity and duality that makes life itself. Right? We have to experience that. Otherwise, we end up constantly running from separation. And if we're running from separation, we are running away from life itself. We're running away from ourselves. That does not equal the evolution of conscious humans, does it? Yeah. So it had to happen. It had to happen. And it's been happening. If you look back astrologically over, the last, thousands of years, every time we've had big world war or big political upheaval, like it's always this frequency of we have to come face to face with separation so that we can hopefully try to understand that not only can we survive it, it's actually essential to our survival.
Yeah. Do you feel that people who don't understand that, haven't worked through that sort of grief and trauma of separation and changed their state, shifted their state about separation, do you think that's why sometimes people, while they're running from separation, they grasp onto attachment of a different identity? So for example, just in what's been going on the past couple of years, people stand so strong in their belief around one thing because they get to then stand in the identity of I'm this person, and they almost box themselves in. Do you think that's creating psychological safety, that they're not separate, they're actually very much connected?
Yeah, I think you're probably spot on. I think we attach ourselves to anything that's static or stagnant or anything that resembles any sort of anchorage, because we crave safety and security so much. And because another part of the trauma that we don't have explained to us as children is that the energy of the universe, humans, life, like everything is constantly in motion. It's unstoppable. Energy is always moving. We are constantly growing and evolving and changing. But because that's not explained to us, we don't understand it. Anything that we don't understand, we immediately have a trauma response to. Yeah. So then, of course, anything that's causing a friction or a tension or a trauma, we're going to immediately, like you say, we're going to run for the equal and opposite, which is stagnation, which is static, which is solid identity. But really all we're doing is we're grasping a cage that we can box ourselves in.
Yeah. It's like when you're a child and you play tag, and you just run to base and you stay in base because you can't get tagged in base. And so you just keep running to base to stay there instead of actually going out on the field and like running around and getting chased, and it's like that safety, because I personally believe that most of us actually live in the middle. And whether that's our thoughts politically or with the coaching industry, like I do believe that the majority of us are actually somewhat in the middle. Everything is not very black and white. And we all probably live more in the middle in every area of life, but for whatever reason, and sounds like you're explaining it perfectly, we kind of lean to one side and we sort of box ourselves in to say, I am this.
Yeah, I think life, as wonderful as it is, there is so much that's unexplained that we don't understand. And so in the absence of our understanding, we create meaning.
Yes.
And I think that's what identity is.
Yep.
Identity is a meaning that we have attached to our existence so that we can try and make sense of it, because the process of understanding is infinite. It's indefinite. It's like, how long is it going to take me to understand something? I recognize I'm in the process of understanding, but can I really maintain that constant momentum? No, that doesn't feel good, because I don't have the security of the end goal. So instead, I'm just going to create a meaning which provides me an immediate solution, instant gratification, recognition, validation of this is my identity, and so I am.
Yeah.
But then in doing that, momentarily, we stop ourselves from fully experiencing life.
Yeah.
One of the things that I teach, the incarnation intentions, and anyone who knows me probably can also rattle this off, because I say it in every single podcast, every single interview, every single program that I teach, right? The incarnation intentions, the reason that every single human being is here on this planet, we are here, number one, to have a human physical emotional experience. Period. Like, that's why the soul broke away from source. It wanted to have a human experience. Two, we are here to use that experience to contribute to the collective, to raise the vibration of the planet for the greatest, highest good of all humanity. So have a life, use it, help make the world a better place. And three, we are here to be the expression of divinity moving through the human filter, right? So that third incarnation intention, we are here to be the expression of divinity moving. It's a verb, it's momentum, it's something that's constantly moving and growing. So every time we try to confine ourselves into a static identity or a place of separation or an I amness or a thing that, like, we love to know things. How much do we love to know things as human beings? I know this and I can identify myself by this, right? But when we do that, we create a staticness, we create a stagnation. And then the irony is we end up saying things like, I feel stuck. I'm stuck. Like, no shit, babe. No shit, you're stuck. Because you're supposed to be expressing, evolving, moving, having a human experience. Like, we are aging, we are moving through time. And because you're not going with the flow and you're trying to, build a cage that you can feel safe in, you, at some level, at a soul level, you suddenly have an epiphany and you're like, oh yeah, this doesn't actually work. I feel stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why, because we're not meant to be static. We can't stay in one place. We age by the second. The energy is constantly moving. Move with it.
Yeah. Move with it. I want to go here, but I want to circle back for 1 second, because you glazed over something a couple minutes ago about energetic clean. You said, make sure you're energetically clean. So specific to when you have a child under 7, make sure you're very energetically clean. What does that mean? How do you do it? Is there a dustpan? Like, how do we clean our energy?
Oh God, it's a lot. And I will preface this with saying my energy is not 100% clean. And I'm a priestess, and I know this, and I teach this, and I have a 4-year-old, and I have a 19-month-old, and I am trying my damned hardest, but I'm also giving myself so much grace, because my cleanliness, my energetic cleanliness, is not solely my responsibility. My energy is not just mine. It's a byproduct of my environment, my parents, my relationships, my experiences, my life before I had this knowledge. So the cleanup's going to take a while. But when I say clean, oh gosh, how do I whittle down an entire course into a few minutes? Give me a sec. So I teach something called the 10 energy bodies, right? That makes up our quantum field. So you've heard of the aura, right? You must have heard of the aura, right? Great big bubble around us. I teach it in 10 layers. So I believe we have 10 energy bodies. I say I believe. This is ancient wisdom that I have adapted, evolved, channeled additional pieces to. So the first energy body is our soul. The second energy body is our negative mind. The third energy body is our positive mind. Fourth energy body, neutral mind. Fifth energy body, physical body. Sixth energy body, arc line, which is that third eye that I referred to, like our psychic capacity. Seventh energy body is the aura. So that's the one that people seem to know, but that's only like one tiny part of it. 8th energy body, pranic, 9th energy body, subtle, 10th energy body, radiant. And they look like Russian stacking dolls,
Sure.
if you like. So you've got 4 inside, 5 is your physical one, and then you've got 5 more outside, right? Each of the energy bodies holds the polarity and duality of human emotion and human experience. So in each individual energy body, there's a specific range of emotions, like a whole spectrum. So pick one at random. Energy body 4 holds the spectrum, the polarity and duality of doubt versus trust. So when we're experiencing doubt, it's because there's a stagnation or a contraction in the 4th energy body, right? Everything that we experience emotionally is held in the energy bodies. Everything that we then express, either from soul or from ego, goes through the filter of these energy bodies. So what we're putting out into the world is tainted by the emotions that we are choosing to carry. And the emotions that we choose to carry can be of benefit to self and to others. So have your human emotional experience and use it to contribute. Or they can be of harm to self and to others. So you're having a human experience, but you're not using it to contribute. So when we harbor things like hate, rage, anger, blame, shame is a massive one. Women are carrying around shame like they're designer handbags, and it's not benefiting them, and it's not benefiting other people, and it sure as hell is not benefiting children, right? But we carry shame, not through our own fault, but because of society, because of patriarchy, because we don't have this education, these conversations, this vocabulary. We carry guilt, we carry pride, revenge, resentment, all of these things. So my gosh, I wish there was a dustpan that we could just clean it all up. But when I say keep your energy clean, this is the importance of self-development work and self-awareness and emotional intelligence and energetic intelligence, because everything that you are energetically, everything that you express either from soul or ego is coming through this filter. And your children especially identify by your energetic makeup up until the age of 7. So if you've got a mama who's carrying around loads of shame and blame and guilt and remorse and regret and doubt and anxiety and overwhelm, that child in the first 7 years of its life is creating an energetic blueprint to match mama. Which is huge. And I'm not sharing it so that moms listening go, oh my God, I'm ruining my child.
Right.
I'm not saying that at all. Andrea Crowder said this on a podcast ages ago, and I thought, this is brilliant. I'm running with this. She said, I've said to my children, and I'm going to change the F word to an M word. She said, I promise you, I will muck you up, but I will pay for therapy. And I heard it and I thought, that's brilliant, because even with all of my knowledge of how to do this, and I really do walk and talk it, sometimes I have a human experience and sometimes that impacts my energy. And so I cannot blame myself and hold shame for how that might be impacting my children, because that's also not going to be of benefit. So I can make that promise to them that, you know, I probably am going to mess you up because I'm not perfect and I can't be perfect. But as priestess and as mum and as, you know, the purse that pays for the therapy, I will do everything that I can to help and support you, you know, to become the best little human that you can be.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Are there certain tools though? Is it something like meditation, Kundalini yoga, journaling, somatic release? Like, are there things that you can actually do to clean up?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a whole set of tools for each energy body, of which there are 10. So yes, there is a lot. Energy body 7, for example, is very much tied to the nervous system, and nervous system regulation has become a huge trend in the coaching industry, right? It's information that's readily available. So, and most of those things that I mentioned, so I'll give you the actual specifics for energy body 7. Those ones are blame, shame, regret, remorse, revenge, guilt, and pride. Those are the ones held in energy body 7. You want to shift those? Nervous system regulation. Like, that's your thing.
Wow.
In energy body 6, that's predominantly where we hold fear, right? Fear specifically of the future, fear of anything that's happening outside of the present reality. So for that one, meditation is a really, really good tool. Energy body 5 is where we hold laziness. It's where we do the all or nothing thing, the boom or bust cycles that we get ourselves in. It's where we resist sacrifice. It's where we resist change, but it's also where we create the most alchemy. So energy body 5 work, get your ass to the gym,
Yeah.
Yoga, you know, like anything that's held in your physical body, the antidote is always like physical body
Movement.
work.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely. So they've all got their own different things. I do put a lot of free content on my Instagram
Yeah.
in regard to the energy bodies, because I do teach it for years. I have a program that's 18 months long. And
Wow.
even then, it's still not as in-depth as the knowledge that I carry in myself. You know, I do my best to give my students everything. But I do put lots of free stuff on Instagram because I think it's really important, and no one knows this, you know, and it provides a precision for energy work that I haven't seen anyone else do.
Yeah.
And for me, that's really important. Like, I don't just want you to say, oh, I'm going to meditate and journal and go to the gym and that's enough. Like, I also want you to have the knowledge and the understanding of it with precision so that you can be really specific in your cleanup and not be doing things that maybe aren't right for you or aren't aligned for you or aren't an exact match for your energetic blueprint.
Oh, it's so good. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm joining. I want to join. I'm so bought in. Every time you speak, every time I hear you speak, every time I read your content, I'm always attracted to what you're doing and what you're teaching and how you're teaching it. But I also know that there might be people on this episode right now listening, or just people in my audience who still have a little bit of resistance. Maybe it sounds a little bit too woo, a little too spiritual, a little too fluffy, especially when you get into things like numerology and astrology. It's like, well, how real is that? Do you have anything that you could say to those people? I'm not asking you to convince them that what you're teaching is real, but how do you sort of help someone get through the barrier of like, I didn't learn this in school. It's not real.
Quantum physics.
Yeah.
Everything that I teach is backed up with science. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'll tell you why, because after I had my, before I had my hallelujah, come to Jesus, you know, spiritual awakening, ego death moment, I was very dependent on the law of attraction. So in my early 20s, I picked up those books, you know, The Secret, and then one led to another and another and another. And before you knew it, I was like, oh my God, I can just manifest things by sitting on my sofa and they're going to fall out of the sky and I'm going to make vision boards. And this is epic. This is amazing. And you know what? And I understand why now it worked, but for a time it worked. And I used to say things like, oh my God, law of attraction has changed my life. I chuckle now. Honestly, I was so sweet. I was so sweet and I was so naive. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And I'm from England. I'm from the north of England. We're typically very cynical up there. People are very down to earth. They're very practical. We're the farmers of the country, you know, the miners, the farmers, like hands-on. We call them the salt of the earth, Yorkshire folk, right? Yeah. So that cynicism really set in after I had the breakdown. So after I had the attempted suicide, the near bankruptcy, I had that like spiritual come to Jesus moment, the ego death. That's when the cynicism ironically really set in. I was like, hang on a minute, this law of attraction stuff, it like this manifestation gig, there's something not quite right with it. And I did loads of psychic work and I developed my channel. And yes, I will say the 11 universal laws, which I teach, I did channel from source. I know some people find that so hard to comprehend, and that's fine. But that's not the only thing I did. I then started studying quantum physics because it was almost too good to be true, but there was still a part of my ego, my identity, that was cynical and wanted scientific fact to back it up. So for 10 years, and I'm still studying now, because I haven't done a degree in it, right? I did a music degree of all things, and I'm not going to put myself back through university, but all the quantum physics textbooks, all of the online lectures that I could get my hands on, sitting in the British Library, like finding information, pouring through stuff that literally made my brain want to melt and explode at the same time, because I have a musical background. I did a music degree. I didn't even do sciences, you know? And there's little old me being like, there's got to be an answer to this manifestation conundrum in a textbook somewhere. Like Einstein must have known this stuff. Turns out the Greek philosophers knew a lot of this stuff, right? So Greek philosophy is something else that I've studied. When you combine Greek philosophy, quantum physics, yes, the spiritual stuff that I have downloaded from source that I cannot give you a rational explanation for because there is not one. But when you combine them all together, it's factual. Everything that I teach spiritually, I have backed up by science. I have a lot of cynics come into my world. When I first started my coaching company, 90% of my client base were American, because I think Americans are a lot more open-minded than the Brits. The Brits, it's like, if you can't prove it, and if you're going to ask me to feel something, like, forget it. Right? Brits don't even do feelings, you know. But the last few years, the audience has changed completely. It's 50-50.
Wow.
Like, I have a 50% UK audience base. And the fact that I can say that still blows my mind. Like, the Brits are the most conditioned people on the planet. Our history and our lineage for patriarchal programming goes thousands and thousands and thousands of years back. I mean, it's just nuts how programmed and conditioned we are. So the fact that there are now people in the UK who come to me and go, well, if you can back it up by science, I'm in. And I go, well, this is the atomic molecular structure. And this is the quantum frequency. And this is what a sine wave looks like. And this is what a coherent wave looks like. And this is what an incoherent wave looks like. And this is how that maps onto the 10 energy bodies. I'm actually teaching this for free in 2 weeks. So I don't know when this episode's coming out, but I've got a big masterclass coming. Yeah. I'm teaching all for free, backed up by science. They go, oh, okay, fine, I'm in.
Wow. Oh, yeah. I love it. And I love how clear you are with everything, because like we were saying before, so many people are teaching things that they're learning quickly and regurgitating it. And you have so many years of experience and knowledge and just studying, and you do back it up by science. And that's something that I do love. And I love how you do that. Who are some of your favorite teachers or some of your favorite books?
You can't ask me that question. I buy a book a week. Sometimes I buy 2 books a week.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. My favorites.
You know who ones that really like shifted for you, like the science behind it?
Oh, so the science specifically, what's that one there? Maxwell Maltz.
Okay. I don't know it.
Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Really good read.
Yeah.
Joe Dispenza's a really good one. He's mainstream, right? He's a really good one to look at.
We're going to his progressive retreat in April. I'm so excited. The week long. Yeah, the week long. I can't wait. I've been studying him for years. I've been dying to go and just haven't been able to with the calendar, and it just never worked out, or it sold out. So yeah, we're going in April for my birthday, and I'm just like, oh, I cannot wait to be in that room.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I tell you, there's a philosopher, Greek philosopher. I don't know how you properly say his name. Epictetus.
Okay.
Epictetus, that's how you spell it. Epictetus, Greek philosophy. He was one of the dudes that Einstein studied to help explain some of his scientific discoveries. And I believe he was a student of Socrates.
Wow.
Someone else that I've read a lot of. Where Greek philosophy meeting quantum physics is fascinating. Yeah. And actually, when you actually study some of the physicist stuff, I'm not really a new fan of Newtonian law, but Einstein definitely had a more spiritual approach to it. You can see how the philosophers have influenced people like Einstein, scientists like Einstein. There's another name that's on the tip of my tongue, and it's going to irritate me now.
We can come back to it.
It'll come back to me because there's a book that's obviously downstairs.
Yeah.
Because it's not here. I can't see it. And it's a really, really good one for the quantum physics.
Yeah. That's so cool. There are so many directions I want to go, and I'm not sure which way I want to go, because I know we can talk a lot about money. We can talk about cancel culture. We can talk about more of the coaching industry. There's just so many things we can talk about, and I'm not sure the direction I want to go. So I'd love to know from you, what is a question that you wish more people asked you that you could riff on?
Oh, putting me on the spot. Okay. Oh, we might have to pause the recording whilst I think. What do I wish more people understood?
Or just something that you're loving teaching right now?
The identity piece as part of the quantum physics and the energetic makeup of our quantum field is something that I'm really enjoying teaching at the moment. But I've also got a huge piece on cancel culture that I'm going to record after this, after this episode that I'm happy to talk about that as well. Just like because it's just the understanding of human behavior, isn't it? I think there's so much that we're not taught in classrooms, in schools. This is my biggest bugbear, right? This is my biggest bugbear with human beings, is that we strive to achieve these big goals, these big ambitions, and not for 1 second do we stop to ask the question, am I actually well equipped? Am I actually well resourced to achieve and even pursue this goal, because we just assume that everything that we've been taught in life by teachers, by parents, by social media, by the news, by society is truth. Like we just accept it, like that's just the way life is, that's just the way things go, this is just the sequence to business success, it just is, so and so on the internet says it just is. And I'm like, at what point did you give away your sovereignty? Sorry, I'm passionate, you can tell, right?
Yeah, no, I love it.
At what point did you give away your sovereignty so that you never even stopped to check in with your own autonomy? Like, at what point did you just sign away your trust, sign away your capacity for independent thought? This was the big thing that came up in the pandemic. Like everyone just taking information at face value and just accepting it on both sides, on the conspiracy theory side of the argument, and then on the mainstream side of the argument, everyone just being like, well, so-and-so on the internet said it, so it's just true. And it's like, but you can think for yourself. Like one of the beautiful things about our species as human beings, above all of the species on the planet, is that we can think. And it's the most amazing resource, and people don't use it. And so actually this is one of the things that motivated this recording that I'm going to do later on cancel culture, was because of what happened in the coaching industry last year, but also on a wider scale, the cancel culture conversation is that people are so quick to make assumptions or to side with one party or the other, or to only ask questions about the events, that they forget to ask questions about human beings. Because the only common denominator on every side of every possible argument is the fact that we are all human beings having a human experience. So can we please ask questions about that, rather than asking questions about she said, he said, who said what, what's the truth, what's the this, what's the other? Like, can we look at it a bit deeper? Because if we can actually understand human beings, if we can understand one another in an all-inclusive, all-encompassing polarity duality way, because that's how the universe is built, then maybe we wouldn't need so much conflict. Maybe we wouldn't need so much separation. And maybe there wouldn't be such such a fighting urge to pursue these goals, because we'd be far more invested in the introspection and the development of us as human beings and on pursuing all of these things outside of us. And I believe it's only when we get outside of ourselves in our pursuit of our goals, our ambitions, our money, whatever it is, that we actually end up running headfirst into other people who we then experience conflict and confrontation with. Like everyone's running away from themselves, running outside of themselves, and not for 1 minute going, what about me? Like, what about me? What about my inner world? What about all of us collectively as human beings? Like, let's ask some questions about that. What about the stuff that we don't speak about? What about the stuff that we don't know? What about the stuff that's missing? You know, maybe that's just me as priestess, but I am building an education foundation. So this is a massive thing that's been on my heart for a while. Not that you've asked. I
absolutely did.
But sharing anyway. The more I teach this stuff to women who are clearly traumatized and struggling and have no knowledge of it, the more I'm aware that if we just taught this to our children, we wouldn't need to teach this to our adults. And so I've set up an education foundation. It's called the Star and Sky Foundation, named after my two children, Ostara, so hence the star bit, and my son is called Odin Sky, so he's the sky bit. Star and Sky Education Foundation, and all the profits from all of my companies, not just the coaching company, but all of them, are going into the foundation so that we can fund syllabus and resources and teachers to go into schools across the country and actually teach our children the stuff that needs to be taught.
Oh, Harriette. Oh my God. I have full-blown chills right now. Of course you are. You are so incredible. That is awesome. When do you think that is something that would be rolling out?
We're still going through red tape. Unfortunately, I don't know how much you know of charities. I knew nothing until I started the process, and I've had many moments of, oh my God, I regret this so much. The paperwork is a pain, but it's a necessary evil. So we are still even trying to get recognized as a charity. But we have people lined up who want to donate and contribute already, which is amazing. I've got friends on board who want to run big charity galas. We've got a huge network of millionaires and billionaires, lots of whom had the most horrendous experiences at school. Undiagnosed ADHD, undiagnosed autism, you know, all undiagnosed neurodiverse
Yeah.
right? Because that wasn't a thing until recently. So I had the most horrendous experiences at school, and now very successful entrepreneurs, as most kids who struggle in school end up being, right?
Yeah.
And all want to contribute, all actually want to make this a reality. So we're just sort of waiting on the paper pushing
Wow.
to get confirmation that we can go ahead, and then we're off.
Oh, well, I can't wait to be able to donate and to be able to help and support and just, I didn't even know you were doing that. So I could talk to you all day. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface. Before we go anywhere and wrap with a couple of rapid fire, just last questions, where can people find you? How can they work with you? What do you have going on? I know we've got this free masterclass coming up, but what does it look like? Give us everything.
Okay. Best place to find me is Instagram, ask_Harriette. I think that's right. You'll put it in the show notes, won't you?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure there's an underscore in there.
Yeah.
Instagram is my place. What have I got coming up? I'll tell you some exciting things. So yes, I've got the free masterclass. It's called FEM. It's an acronym. It stands for Feminine Energetics Manifested Through Masculine Evolution.
Ooh.
Basically teaching you how to do that feminine manifestation, magnety attraction-y thing, but using science, the masculine part.
I love that.
Right? So I'm going to be teaching neuroscience. I'm going to be teaching human psychology. I'm going to be teaching quantum physics and my own spiritual science, and putting it all together and saying, this is how you manifest, peeps. Here's the backup. So that's free. I'm running that the week of the 20th of March, but it'll be available afterwards, obviously. More exciting than that is then I am getting back on the road. So I'm getting back on tour. I am coming back to America.
You are?
I know. I am. We're going to kick off the tour in the UK in June, and then I'm going to end up in New York and LA in September.
Ooh, I'm so excited for you.
This is the plan. Now, I've only committed to 2 cities at the moment, because last time I did this, I was child-free. Yes. I did 18 cities in 6 weeks. I don't know if you remember that.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize it was that many.
2018. Yeah, back in 2018, 18 cities in 6 weeks. I was pregnant. I didn't realize it at the time. But I know, right? Oh, the joys. But this time, I am a very sleep-deprived mama with 2 children. So I've just committed to 2 cities at the moment. I may commit to more, but it's this teaching. So it's the science behind manifestation and energetics, mixed with emotional and energetic intelligence, mixed with self-leadership, mixed with personal development, mixed with ask the questions that actually need to be asked and focus on you rather than all of this externalization and running away from yourself nonsense. I'm teaching all of that. What else have I got coming up? I've got my new energetic intelligence program, which I'm going to be launching at the beginning of April. So that's like the energy body stuff, those 10 energy bodies, 18-month-long program. I'm launching that. I've got a series of programs coming up called the Empress Collection, which is all about self-leadership and communication and becoming your best self. Oh, there's so much stuff. I don't stop. I love what I do so much. I do not stop. And then somewhere in the middle of all of that, I will be getting the Education Foundation off the ground.
Incredible.
It's a big thing.
Incredible. Yeah. Oh, I love you so much. All right. So when you were a kid, you grew up with some entrepreneurs. What did you want to be as an adult?
I wanted to be Britney Spears. I wanted to be
I love that. Oh, that's right. Music.
Yeah, I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be adored by millions of people all over the world. And it nearly happened. And then I changed my mind.
Yeah. Well, you are still adored and you're on big stages and you sing. So you nailed it. I remember actually when we first met, I had scrolled back in your Instagram, you know, when you first meet someone, you check out some posts and you were singing on Instagram.
Yeah, I used to do that and I need to do more of it.
Yeah.
You know, the only reason I stopped, and it's so silly, is because we moved from London to this massive house in the countryside. And I went, I now get to have a room just for my piano. So I have my grand piano in her dedicated room rather than in the open plan living kitchen, which is where it was in the last house. Yeah. And of course I never flipping go into that room, do I? So she doesn't get played. And so I've said to Stephen, we're knocking down some walls. We're going to do an extension. The piano is coming back into, we're going to make a big open plan living space again. Yeah. Here was me thinking, you know, I wanted that like mansion lifestyle where you have a kitchen and then you have a sunroom and then you have a breakfast room and you have a dining room and then you have the piano room and then you have the cinema room. We've got all of these rooms. And I'm like, we're just going to knock wall downs and, you know, just make it all one big open plan space. Yeah. So I can play my piano again, you know?
Good. Well, you're very talented. So I'm excited for that. $50,000 question. If I cut you a check for $50,000, I don't know what that would be in your conversion right now, but we can just go with it.
Yeah.
How would you use it in the business? You could do it in the business, on the business, any one of your businesses, but where would you put the 50,000?
You mean if I wasn't allowed to put it into the education foundation?
You can, if that's where you want to put it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the obvious questions. That's the obvious answer, isn't it? If the education foundation didn't exist, I would probably use it for sponsorship to provide more scholarships for women who want to do my courses, want to have my coaching, but can't otherwise afford it.
Yeah.
I'd probably put some into ad spend because I think it's just a really smart idea. It just keeps the company growing, the audience building. And I'd probably, if budget allowed, add an extra pit stop to the world tour so that I could see more people, and or use it to bring my children with, which, to be fair, I don't need money for. That's really just a question of, do I want to drag 2 children to New York and then 3 days later to LA? Do I want to deal with the screaming and the tantrums of the time difference and the flights? So that's not really a good question.
Yeah. Is there a book in your future?
There's 3.
Ooh.
Jess, I don't know why I haven't put them out there.
Did you write them?
Yeah.
Oh, you wrote 3 books already?
Yeah. One of them's completely finished. 2 of them are half started, and then I got the EBGBs and went, nah, not now.
Oh, well, what's the first one about?
The 11 Universal Laws.
We are patiently waiting for you to put that out.
I wrote it in 2019.
I
don't know what to do.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. I've written the 11 Universal Laws. I've written the 10 Energy Bodies. And the other one that I started writing was Priestess. And then decided that maybe the world wasn't ready for that on a mainstream level. So I just packed it back up. But clearly, I need to coach myself through that. So thank you for the mirror.
I was feeling it. I'm like, there's got to be a book somewhere. All right. So our final question that we end with, you sort of already answered this. So I don't know if you can come up with a different answer, but we named the company Digital Business Evolution because we believe that we're always evolving and growing, and our businesses are a reflection of that. So they're always evolving and growing as well. So what is your next personal or business evolution?
I'm working on it at the moment. I had a huge epiphany when I started developing one of my identity programs, that we have a tendency to avoid any behaviors which are in direct threat to the identity upon which we have built our survival and or our success. So we have multiple identities, right? We have a success identity and we have a survival identity. And I recognized through my own sort of working, through my own self-development stuff recently, that I had, in my attempts to move from 7-figure identity to multi-7-figure identity, I'd completely freaked my 7-figure identity out and slipped back into multi-6-figure. Like I went so far back into a comfort zone of totally okay for me to be doing 60, 70K months. Like, who even needs to be doing the 100K months? Like, don't even worry about it. Until I went, hang on a minute, there's a bigger why here, the education foundation. Like, that's still going to need my money as well as everyone else's money. And so I've been doing this huge identity piece around, I'm safe at multi-6 figures. I've embodied 7 figures, but now my evolution is stepping into multi-7, not for me, but for my education foundation. So there's a really different energetic dynamic around it. I'm not making the money for me. I'm making it for all of the kids' lives that I get to impact. I'm making it for my lineage, for my legacy. And that's not an identity I've ever played with before. Like, I did it on a small scale after the breakdown and the breakthrough. And I was like, now I get to help people with this same stuff that I've been helping myself with. But that was small groups of women, and one-on-one clients. That's like, I have a course with 70 people in it. Cool. But I'm not talking about 70 kids. I'm talking about entire lineages here.
Yeah.
And that I can even feel it in my heart now. Like this evolution wants to happen, but there's a lot of energetic and emotional intelligence work that needs to be done. So yeah, that's the next big one for me. And just really interesting, like how big and scary it is. It actually caused my identity to snap back into something that was super safe and super familiar.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I feel like I've experienced something very similar in the last year and a half as well.
Okay.
Sort of like a snapback, because it was so big. And then it was like, oh, it's not even I don't know that I can do this. It was like, I don't think there's room for that yet. And so I get to clean it up and make room for that. It's
Yeah.
so interesting. Well, I'm so excited to watch from the sidelines and to just be cheering you on. I love you dearly from across the pond. I'm so grateful for you. I love the work that you do. I love how you show up in this world and just the compassion that you have for every single being, every single being. So thank you so much for being here. As always, friends, if you love this episode, if you had aha moments, if you have takeaways, if you're interested in working with Harriette, the best way that we can give back to Harriette and just thank her for pouring so much into us today. We packed so much in. Take a screenshot of the episode, share it out on social media, tag Harriette at ask_Harriette. That's 2 R's and 2 T's, right?
And an E on the end.
And an E on the end. And then tag me at I am Jessica DeRose. We'll drop all of your links in the show notes. I know I definitely will be going to your free masterclass, and I'm just so excited to see everything that you do in this world. Thank you so
You're
much.
amazing. Thank you so much.
As always, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.